So what is paint correction? So these are the machines, or some of the machines that we use to achieve the process of paint correction. But before we get into these, let me try and explain what paint correction is. So if a customer brings us a vehicle and they said, I want the paint to look as good as it can. We've got all these scratches and we've got swirls, we've got imperfections in the paint. That's where paint correction comes in. Paint correction is essentially removing the top layer of clear coat on your car. So you've got the substrate or the metal or the fiberglass or the plastic or aluminum or whatever the body is made out of, if your car, truck, van, whatever. You've got that, and then you've got a primer on top of that, all right? And then you've got paint on top of that. And then you've got clear coat, multiple layers of clear coat on top of that. So that's what protects your paint, and that is what gives you your depth and your protection on your actual paint is the clear coat. You've got so much of it, and once it's gone, it's gone. So clear coat is something that is pretty resilient when it comes to factory paint jobs. There's usually, more oftentimes than not, quite a bit there to work with. What kind of skews that is when you get a car in that has had a repaint or paint touch-ups, which is pretty common on anything that has any kind of age to it. Fender bender, somebody backs into your door, somebody hits your bumper, whatever, and you have to repaint that. That is going to be different than the rest of the body panels on your car. So with that, you have to, as a detailer, you have to think about that. When we go to make the paint look as good as possible, the whole concept of the idea is to remove the least amount of clear coat and get the most shine and remove the most defects, and then keep as much of that intact to protect your paint. Let me show you. Paper. All right. So, all right, here we go. So clear coat is going to be this. You can't see that. This wavy line. All right. Hopefully you can see that. So that's let's say that's your clear coat. Okay. I know it's supposed to be flat, but after washing and abuse and rock chips and the day-to-day stuff that happens, you're going to get these kind of dips, and these dips can represent this could be a scratch. Hopefully you can see this. This can be a scratch, this can be a rock chip, this can be a swirl, whatever. Okay, so the deeper, let's say that your clear coat looks like this. All right, so the deeper the scratch is, or the deeper the swirl is, you've got light that, whether it be sun or garage lights or whatever, that's reflecting off of your car's paint. Okay, so you've got all these different different aspects of light. The deeper that scratch or the deeper that swirl is, the more it's going to be noticeable, the more prominent you're going to see that. So the idea is, I need another piece of paper. The idea is to level that, and you want the surface as smooth as you can get it, so that way when the light bounces off of your car's surface, you don't have those drastic dips. So, all right, This is before paint correction. Scratch, swirl, scratch, swirl. We're going to level that. We're going to go in, if my pen will work, we're going to go in and we're going to level that. All right, so this line is going to represent actually leveling those. So you're taking out a lot of the bumps. You're taking out a lot of you're taking out a lot of the imperfections, but you're making that valley and that peak a lot less. So when you do that, it goes from pretty aggressive to, let's say, this right here. So when you see this compared to this after paint correction, you've removed the top layer of clear coat, and when that light bounces off in different directions, sunlight, lights from a canopy in a gas station, whatever, that light is not actually going down into this deep valley. It's actually going and reflecting off of your surface. So you're not going to see those defects. It's going to be a much more uniform with much more less, you're going to see a lot less imperfections in the paint. So that's kind of the idea with paint correction. I'm not an artist, never claimed to be. All right, so we're not going to draw anymore because that wasn't the best, but hopefully it got the point across. So here's some of the machines that we actually use. So left to right, I guess it's your right to left. So here is a Rupes Bigfoot LHR 15. This is the machine that all the professional use. This is the ones that if you watch any detailing channels on YouTube, this is what all the guys use right here. And this is like with tax, if you don't catch it on sale, you're knocking on a $500 machine. Is it worth it? I'm really not crazy about this machine. It's not bad. It's very smooth. It is effective. It's Italian made, so the quality is there. Notice when I spin the 5-inch backing plate that's on this. Okay, so it spins. I don't know if you can see that. It spins freely. In other words, when I take my hand and I spin that, it doesn't just stop. Okay, when I originally got this machine from Rupes, it didn't do that. It stops. And that's because the backing plate actually come in contact with whatever piece is under that. It's part of the machine. So the machine would, when you would get into a curve or an intricate section of a body panel, something that had something that wasn't flat, the machine would stall out. And when that backing plate or the pad that's attached to that is not actually turning, you're not doing anything. You're not correcting anything. You're not achieving anything. You're just vibrating the panel is all you're doing. So I put this machine aside for a while and recently took the backing plate off, put a washer between the machine and the backing plate, and it allows the machine to spin freely. I've used it since then, actually on my GTO, and it is better. It is much improved, and I do like it better, and I'll likely go back to this machine. I want to like this machine because of how much I paid for it. Our primary machine, I don't even have everything on the table. We have two versions of this machine, and this one's filthy because we use it all the time. This is the Griot's G21. So it is, I think it's 1,000 or 1,100 watts. This thing's powerful, and the G21 means it has a 20 millimeter throw. So minus this one, these are all DA, dual action. So what that means is not only do they spin, but the head oscillates as well. So you've got a dual action in place. What that means is these are relatively safe uh, for detailing. If you've got a gear-driven polisher or a full orbital where there's no oscillation, it's just when you pull the trigger, it's direct drive, and this thing spins. If you leave that on a panel, even if you don't leave it on a panel for too long, on edges, you have to be super careful with those things. They've got correction like crazy. You can achieve a lot of correction. And when I say correction, you can remove a lot of swirls, a lot of imperfections, a lot of scratches. You can do some really good things with them, but you have to be super careful with them. With that, there's some liability when you use them because things can happen even when you don't mean for them to happen. So we use DA machines, and when we need more cut or we need that edge, we go to a stronger pad in a stronger compound and still use the safety of these machines. So we got the Rupes, we got the Griots. Um, we've also got this same machine in a G15. So this is a G21. It's got a 21 millimeter throw, oscillation. G15 is the exact same thing, slightly tighter oscillation. Both fantastic machines. And Griots, we use their compounds too. The other thing about Griots is if you buy a Griot's machine, if something messes up, if something breaks, if something doesn't work, you send this back to Griots and they fix it or they send you another one. So customer service is pretty dang good. You also get brushes in the kit that you need to replace. When you buy one of these, you'll get brushes because they're not brushless that you'll need to replace from time to time. This is a 3-inch machine. So this is an Adams 3-inch swirl killer. This thing works really well in the tighter areas that you can't quite fit a 5-inch machine. Let's say around a mirror, or if you've got an intricate hood or a panel that the 5-inch just wants to kind of stall out on. You can go on this 3-inch and manipulate the machine a little more and get the correction. Now we also have another 3-inch machine that I don't have on the table, and it's a Porter cable. I've had that machine for 10, 12 years, and I have retrofitted it with a 3-inch backing plate like the Adams, and it just won't die. It's a good machine. It doesn't have a ton of RPM, doesn't have a lot of watts, but it works. It's reliable. We use it all the time. And then lastly, we've got a 1-inch polisher. I'm going to get some hate on this, but just go ahead, bring it on. This is a SPTA 1-inch polisher. This is a Amazon special polisher. It works. This is great for your A-pillars, underneath your mirrors. If you get into wheels, if you get into, between, I'm looking at my car right now, between the headlight and the grill, there's like a 1-inch section right there. Well, you can use a 3-inch on that, but you're not going to be able to manipulate that like you can a 1-inch. So this comes in really handy for the 1-inch areas. Yes, it's an Amazon polisher. It works. We've tested it. We've tried it on a couple of machines, and it actually does work. One day, as much as I'm not the biggest fan of this Rupes, maybe I'll have a Rupes 1-inch Nano. But for what this does, it's hard for me to spend $500 or $600 for a 1-inch Nano when that right there is pretty darn close to the same thing. So these are the machines, 4 out of the 6 machines that we have. And of course, we'll use different combinations of pads, different combinations of polishes. Typically, we use foam, aggressive foam to non-aggressive. For example, we've got anything from a Rupes blue coarse pad all the way down to a CCS white finishing pad. We've even got wax pads. I never use them, but we've got them. And then everything in between. We also have some wool pads for the really bad stuff, and we've got some microfiber cutting pads. McGuire's. Yeah, we've got, no, hold on a minute. I think it's McGuire's. Nope, I lied. It's Grio's. So like for your, this is a 3-inch, it's a 3-inch pad, and this is a microfiber cutting pad. So this is going to be much more aggressive than, say, like your 3-inch foam pad. And this is going to go on a 3-inch polisher. And when you use this, you're going to get some really good results as far as the big stuff. But when you use microfiber, you're going to remove some of the bigger defects, but you're also going to haze the paint. So you're not going to get that clarity when you use something like this. So then you take this off, you go behind it with a foam pad. Let's say, like, if you use this, we would probably follow that up with a orange or a white pad, like a CCS pad in a lighter polish. And then we would clean up the haziness and bring out the clarity and the gloss of the paint after we go over it with this. So that's kind of a short explanation of paint correction. From, if I've got my dates right, from 92 backward, you're looking at single stage paint, and as opposed to base clear, which is what's current. Single stage paint, you don't have clear coat. So when you polish the paint out, that paint, that residue comes off on the pad, whatever you're using. So if your car's maroon, your pad's going to be maroon. If it's blue, your pad's going to be blue. It's just a different approach that you have to go to. You have to be a little bit more vigilant about blowing out your pads, keeping them clean, keeping them from gumming up. Most of the vehicles that we're going to work on, not all, most, are going to be before, or 93 are current, and they're base clear. So when you do that, you're not going to get paint transfer on the pad. So anyway, a little side note about base coat and base coat clear versus single stage paint. So that's sort of the idea when people say paint correction. They say, well, you want to buff the paint. That's essentially the same thing. But there's different stages of paint correction. Sometimes you can do a one-step paint correction, and that's going after it with a aggressive enough pad and polish to remove most of the imperfections, swirls, scratches in the paint, and still leaving a nice finish, and then protecting it, which is very common. That's what we do. It's cost effective, and it makes the car look definitely better than what you started with. If you want to go another step, and even some vehicles kind of require this. Black vehicles are notorious for this. If you've got a black vehicle that's just hammered, swirls, scratches, all kinds of stuff, it's really difficult to get away with just a one-step correction. Yes, you'll see a difference for sure, but you almost have to tackle it with one of these machines and a very aggressive foam pad or a microfiber pad with some pretty aggressive polish. Remove those heavy defects, and then go behind it with a foam pad, like a light cutting pad or a finishing pad with a less aggressive polish, and then clean up that haziness that you create, maybe buffer trails or tick marks that you may put in the paint after removing the heavy stuff, and really get that finish dialed in. So hopefully that sort of explains the paint correction process. These are things that we'll be happy to price. It is kind of vehicle specific, but if you've got any questions, feel free to put comment below, reach out to me, be happy to help you.